Today is the day I make my biggest batch of soap yet. This is going to be 25 pounds of total soap batter. So I have my icy slushy solution here, which is distilled water, aloe juice, citric acid, salt, and sugar. The citric acid is to prevent soap scum. It acts as a chelator. The sugar is to increase the bubbles, and the salt is to add to the hardness of the bar. It helps me unmold the bar and add some beneficial minerals to the soap. Now we're going to add our lye, and the lye is going to heat this up, which is why I have it in an ice bath, because with the aloe juice and the sugars, the lye can caramelize it, and you'll see that this solution is going to change colors, and we're just trying to inhibit it from changing colors too drastically. If my voice sounds muffled, it's because I'm speaking through a mask. You always want to wear a mask and protective gloves when working with lye. Lye is a caustic chemical that is naturally occurring. It occurs when water runs through hardwood ashes. Lye like this is made in a standardized form by sending electrical currents through water, which I found very interesting. So I consider it to be natural because it's simply electricity going through water. In a controlled environment, therefore, we can create safe soap for our skin. You can see the cloudiness now. It looks kind of milky in my solution. That will eventually clear back up. We're just going to keep adding this and stirring. I'll come back when we have all of the lye added to our solution. All of our lye is now in our liquid solution. And even though I started with slushy ice water and I have it submerged in an ice bath, the lye still managed to get the solution up to 200 degrees. So it still gets very, very hot. So you still want to be very careful when working with lye. But at least we've prevented the liquid from turning too orange. If I had not had it so cold to begin with and kept it cold in the ice bath, this solution that you see here would actually be quite bright orange. Sometimes it even goes dark brown. So you really want to be careful when you have additives in your liquid to keep it cool during that exothermic reaction with the lye. Lye is a caustic ingredient, but once it reacts with the oils, it's going to go through saponification and become basically a salt, which is skin safe and very good for your body in cleansing. So we are going to mix this until the temperature starts to go down. You'll see it's lost its cloudiness. It's just a nice yellowish color. Once the temperature starts to go down, we'll know that the lye has fully reacted with the water and it's starting to cool. But I want to cool it down till it meets the temperature of my oils. So I'm trying to get it down to about 110 degrees is what I'm looking for today. So I will continue to keep it in the ice bath and stir it until we get to 110 degrees. And that might take a while, so I'm not going to make you watch all that boring stuff. I'll come back when we're ready to mix it. Our lye solution is finished. It's still rather warm. We are at 123 degrees Fahrenheit, but our soft oils, which are room temperature, are 70 degrees, and our hard oils are currently at 109. And I think that if we mix them all up, we should be somewhere close to 110, so we're going to give it a go. The first thing we need to do is to blend up our soft oils because they contain our additives of goat milk powder and colloidal oats, and we want that to all be fully incorporated. I have 2 stick blenders ready because when mixing a large batch, there's always the worry that your stick blender might burn up or break. So we have a backup just in case. I'm going to get in here, make sure we get all the air out of the bell of our stick blender, and we're going to blend this all up. So why do I use colloidal oats and goat milk? Well, goat milk I use because it's creamy, and the colloidal oats I use for skin soothing properties, as well as just a tiny, tiny hint of exfoliation. It will be barely noticeable, and only to those with the most sensitive skin, but ultimately most people won't even know that it's there. But it's a gentle exfoliant, so it kind of helps break up dirt. It helps slough off dead skin when you're using it. It's a lovely addition to soap. It's different than adding ground oats because it is only the part of the oat that will dissolve in water. So you don't get big chunks or bits. It won't clog your drain. It won't stick to your skin. It's a lovely additive. Now the soft oils that we have in here are olive oil and castor oil. Olive oil I like to use because of its moisturizing, conditioning properties. And it's also very gentle to the skin. Castor oil is kind of helps give substance to the bubbles. So because I have so many additives, I try to help the bubbles as much as I can because every additive is going to inhibit the bubbles just a little bit. All right, so these are our hard oils. In here, we have melted coconut oil, which is great for lather as well as oil stripping. So it's a cleansing oil. And then we have lard, which is a conditioning oil. So it gives a creaminess to the lather, and it's also very conditioning to the skin as well. And then we have melted cocoa butter and shea butter, and both of those will add luxurious properties to the soap and hardness to the bar. We're going to add our liquid oils to the hard oils. And I'll be sure to scrape every container that I'm using because you work really hard on the mathematical calculations for soap, and you really want to stay as true to your calculations as possible. So I try to make sure I get every drop possible. There is always a little bit left in the bucket, and that's okay. We account for that by what's called a superfat. A superfat serves two purposes. A superfat ensures that there is no lye left in your soap. So you always add a little more oil than you do lye to ensure that there is no lye remaining in your finished product. But then we'll superfat even beyond that just to add a conditioning element to our bar. So it's kind of like having shampoo and conditioner in one. You have your soap and then you have like a body butter blended in at the end. It's not going to give you the same effect as a body butter, just as a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner won't give you the same effect as leaving conditioner on your hair for 3 to 5 minutes in the shower, but it will give you a conditioning effect in your soap. So we're just going to hand stir this together to make sure that it's fully incorporated. Now that our oils are all combined, it's time to add our lye solution. So let's see, we currently have a temperature of 96 with our oils, and our lye has cooled down to 119. And with the lye, you always want to pour carefully. You do not want it splashing out of the container because it is in its caustic form at the moment, so it is dangerous. Now, once you add the lye to the oils, it has to complete the saponification process. Until that process is complete, the batter is dangerous to your skin. It can give you a chemical burn on your skin. With cold process soap, saponification typically occurs over the course of 48 hours. That will be dependent, of course, on the heat of your soap. With hot process, the saponification is complete before you're done cooking it. But I am not cooking my soap. I'm going to let it naturally saponify just on the exothermic reaction inside of it. All right, we're going to just hand stir this at first to make sure that that lye is throughout the oils before I hit it with the blender. And now we'll blend. Blending creates an emulsion between the water-based lye and the oils. And that will cause them to adhere to each other so that every lye particle can be surrounded by the oils and go through that saponification process. If you don't ensure that they are emulsified, there's a chance that you could have pockets of lye that don't get fully saponified. And we do not want that, so we're being extra careful. And now we're just going to blend and blend and blend until we don't see any separation between oil and water. Do you see this color change to orange here? That is the lye reacting to the colloidal oats that was in the oils. And then in between blending, I will stop and I will hand stir just once again to make sure that there are no spots left unblended. It will redisperse everything so that when I start to blend it again, there won't be any hidden pockets of lye. This is especially important when doing a large batch like this, to make sure that you don't have any little corners or little areas where the blender did not hit. If you're making a small batch, it's much easier to make sure that everything's incorporated. But with a large batch, you really don't want to waste ingredients, and you want to ensure the safety of your soap. So we're going to take our time and make sure that we do it right. Once I feel like I've gone over every corner and every side of the container, I will start to blend again. You'll see me blend at the bottom and then lift up. That's because lye in the water form is heavier than the oils. So if it's not blended in, it will sink to the bottom. So I like to spend time on the bottom, but then I make sure to pull it up to bring that lye up to where the oils are. All right, and more hand stirring. We don't have a trace yet. It can be really tricky to get to trace with a large batch. I never did take the temperature of my soap batter once mixed together. I've been blending, so it should be heating up, but we're good. We're at 108. So the combination was good. We had it right around 110, which is what I like to soap at with my particular recipe. So usually when I'm making a large batch like this, I am making it to make a bunch of different soaps. But today this is all one soap. And that's because this is my most popular soap, my unscented, unfragranced, simple, natural bar of soap. And I get a lot of people that use this because they have sensitive skin, or they have skin conditions such as eczema, or they're on a medical program such as chemotherapy, which sensitizes the skin. And this is such a mild, skin-loving bar that a lot of people just, it's not so much that they want it even, it's just that they need it. It's really hard to find bars like this at the store. So I decided to make a large batch so that I wouldn't run out. Because it takes so long to cure the soaps, if I run out and then somebody wants more, if I'm not ready and I don't have some already on my curing rack, they have to wait 6 weeks to get it. And I hate telling people no, especially on a soap like this where they really need it. So that's why I'm making the largest batch I've ever made in order to ensure that I can provide that. All right, I have blended till both of my blenders are threatening to overheat and die. They are quite warm to the touch. We do have a light trace. So at this point, I'm going to pull this aside and bring in our large soap mold. I have made a special liner for this soap mold, specifically so I don't have to share it with any other soap that uses fragrances or colorants. That way, This mold is only to be used for uncolored, unscented soap for my special customers. So now comes the hard part. I've never poured this much soap into a soap batter. Let's see if I can do it without making a huge mess. And I want to pour slowly so as not to incorporate too many bubbles. And I also want to be careful of splashback. Woo! Because this is doing all sorts of funny things if I pour too fast. Look at that. It's like a sprinkler motion there. But you'll see the bubbles that pop up when I do that. So the thinner the stream, the less bubbles. I'm just going to move this back and forth to kind of help bring up any bubbles that have been trapped. And I hope I've done my calculations correct and that all of this soap batter can fit in this mold. If not, we'll have to do something fun with the leftovers. But right now it's looking promising. At first I thought, oh heavens no, I have way too much soap batter. This will never fit in here. But I think it's going to be spot on. I used the standard soap mold formula, which is base times height times width of the inner dimensions times 0.4. And it's not an exact formula, but it gets you pretty darn close, as proven by this. I mean, we've got maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch left on our mold that was not filled by the soap batter. That is wonderful. I love the smell of this soap. It does smell like natural soap, but it also has just the touches of the oatmeal and the chocolate. It's very, very faint, almost imperceptible, but I love the way that this soap smells. It's just fabulous. All right, I'm going to finish scraping this in a little bit. Right now, I just want to jostle this mold and try to knock it around like that. I'm going to turn it and knock it again, trying not to create waves in the soap. I do not want it splashing up on me. That just encourages the bubbles to come to the surface so that we get a nice smooth bar on the inside. I'm just tapping it to break up the air bubbles. And then there's nothing I can do texture-wise to the top. It's just much too fluid. So I'm going to let it sit. I'm not going to cover it. I'm okay if the top ashes on this because it is a rustic sensitive soap. But I will probably come back to add some texture to it just because there are so many micro bubbles on top and I don't care for the way that looks. So we will come back to add some fun details to the soap once it has set up more. Here's our finished soap. Moment of truth to see if the liner held up and see if I can even get this out. Oh, look at that. It unmolds so easily. So we have, our slab is all cut up. I didn't get the swirls centered for the bar. I've learned a lot of things about how to use a slab mold and a slab cutter with this. But I am pleasantly pleased with how well this turned out. And so now we're just going to line this up and cut down. And look at these beautiful bars, perfect for the palm, nice and thick. These are perfect. Oh, I love them. So we are going to clean these up. Give them our usual treatment, give them a nice little stamp, and set them on the curing rack. So in 8 weeks, we are going to have some extra beautiful soap. I like to cure my unscented, uncolored soap an extra 2 weeks, just because these are generally purchased by people with sensitive skin. And the longer you cure a soap bar, the more mild it becomes on the skin. which is one of the reasons why if you buy handmade soap, you should always ask the maker of your soap how long they cure their bars, because that does make a difference in the finished product. And not all homemade soap makers even make their own soap, one, and two, not all soap makers cure their soap for an adequate amount of time. Some just want to get it on the shelf and sold quickly. So it's always a good thing to ask before you spend your good money on a luxury product to make sure that the maker has your best interest at heart. So those are our beautiful natural soap bars. We'll come back in just a second with the finished look.